Well, he's an unlikely presidential candidate, a soft-spoken physician who's never held political office, but has great distinction. He's got over 50 honorary degrees for his work. But even so, Dr. Ben Carson remains near the front of the pack in a very crowded Republican field. Let's take a look.
Dr. Ben Carson's well-documented life's journey began in Detroit, as depicted in the movie and the book Gifted Hands. Carson was raised in poverty by a single mom who taught him that through faith in Jesus Christ and hard work, anything was possible. Young Ben overcame difficult circumstances to become a world-renowned neurosurgeon.
My life has been truly amazing. I think about it all the time.
When he retired from medicine and began speaking out on important issues facing our country, his admirers and supporters urged him to run for president. Carson says he wants to make a difference. And he says making a difference starts with understanding the Constitution. That's the subject of his latest book, A More Perfect Union: What We the People Can Do to Reclaim Our Constitutional Liberties.
Well, listen, it's a pleasure. Dr. Carson was for many years one of the trustees at Regent University. He's a dear friend of mine, and it's just a thrill to have him with us. Ben, it's just a delight to see you. Hey, did you ever think you were going to do as well as you are? You were leading some of the polls all over the country.
Well, it's very gratifying to see what is happening, because it really indicates that the people are starting to think for themselves. They're not just listening to the pundits. They're not just listening to the media's portrayal of people. And I think that is going to be the salvation of our nation.
Well, you've written this book called Toward a More Perfect Union. The president, we had a report today that he was thinking of unilateral action on gun control, that he would just not wait for Congress. He was going to do what he wanted to do by executive order. What do you think of all these executive orders that have been flooding the airways recently?
Well, you know, clearly the Constitution talks about the separation of powers and the checks and balance system. And what has happened recently is that the legislative branch has been acting more like the peanut gallery. Just sitting back and watching what the executive branch and the judicial branch do, which I think is leading to their overreach. And I'm hopeful that the president's declaration about gun control will inspire the legislative branch to stand up with a backbone and to do something, and recognize the Constitution tells you what the reasons for, these executive actions are. When Congress is out of session, or when it's inconvenient for them to be able to do something, and something needs to be done in a relatively short period of time. And that can be a temporary measure until Congress can make a more definitive ruling. But tradition has changed that, and we need to reestablish the correct order.
Putin just moved into Syria. He's got tanks in there. He's got troops in there. Now he's shooting cruise missiles in from out of the Crimean area. What would you do if you were president with Syria?
Well, you have to recognize that Putin has expansionist ideas. And the only thing that's really stopping him, quite frankly, is money right now. The price of oil has dropped tremendously, which has hampered him severely. Now, he's looking to extend his influence throughout the Middle East. I personally believe that he would very much like to get control of a lot of the energy resources in that area so that he can control pricing and bring himself back up where he wants to be. He has long-standing relationships down there. Mahmoud Abbas of the Palestinian Authority and Ali Khamenei, the supreme leader of Iran, were both classmates in the class of 1968 at Patrice Lumumba University in Moscow, where they became acquainted with a young Vladimir Putin. So these are deep ties. And you can see that Iran is supporting the Assad regime along with Putin. And it has nothing to do with what Russia said they were coming in there to do, to fight ISIS. Instead, Who are they fighting? Al-Nusra, Al-Jilani. You know, they obviously have a very different agenda here, and we need to oppose them. We need not listen to their general who says you can't fly here. We can fly anywhere we want. And in fact, I would establish with Turkey a no-fly zone along the Turkish border. I would also challenge him in the whole basin area. You know, we have a few armored brigades, you know, throughout that region of the world. We need to have a much more robust program. We need to have missile defense systems. We need to arm the Ukrainians because they got rid of their nuclear weapons because we said that we would protect them, and we haven't done it. And we need to use our energy resources to put him further into the box.
What about this gun thing? You've been having a little discussion with Wolf Bullister and other about guns and what happened at that college out in the West. What would you do with this gun control? Do you know what they're talking about and what they want to do? What is their ultimate goal, do you think?
Well, you know, I'm an extremely reasonable person, as you know. And I would say I'm willing to listen to whatever ideals the gun control advocates have, as long as they don't compromise the Second Amendment. That's a non-starter for me. You cannot compromise the Second Amendment, because Daniel Webster had it right when he said America will never experience tyranny as long as the people are armed.
Do you think you thought maybe in Germany that the Nazis had disarmed the people before they began their rampage against the Jews? Is that right?
That's very clear. That you know, several years before they began their tyrannical reign, they systematically disarmed the populace. The same thing has occurred in a number of other nations before tyranny began to reign. And that's why we need to look at these things. We need to understand history and not allow it, because it's frequently done, you know, in the name of something good and pleasant, and everybody says, wow, apple pie and mommy. But the fact of the matter is there's sinister notions behind it, and we can never allow that to happen in this country.
President Carson raises his hand, placed with one hand on the Bible, and says, I'm going to uphold the Constitution of the United States, and now you're president. What would your first thing do, you think?
First thing I would do is call for a joint session of Congress and help people to understand that we're Americans. We're not Democrats or Republicans first, we're Americans first. And that we in the government work for the people, they don't work for us. And all the policies of a Carson administration are going to be aimed at restoring the people to the pinnacle and putting the government in the correct place, which is to facilitate life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness for the people. But I'm also going to be very concerned about our standing in the world. Our military has been severely weakened. We're going to have to change that. We're going to have to start looking at the dangers that face us. We have a grid that is archaic. We're going to have to harden that grid with a private-public relationship. We're going to have to get back into space. I think it's critical in terms of our innovation. Look at all the things that came out of the space program, your cell phone. And also, in the future, he who controls space will control the Earth. We cannot allow others to gain the dominance there.
I hope this book does well. You've got your plan is called A Hope, a More Perfect Union. It's Dr. Carson. And we wish you the very best. This is an exciting campaign. I tell you, you've surprised everybody.
Well, a lot of people don't understand, you know, that there are other forces involved that maybe they can't relate to.
Well, you certainly relate to a lot of them. God bless you. This book, Hope, A More Perfect Union, Dr. Carson, very insightful and very intelligent, and a brilliant neurosurgeon who I'm thrilled to call a friend. So, Dr. Carson,
thank you.
We love you.
It's good to see you, even if it's on television.
Well, you come back. We had a lot of fun together, you and your dear wife. All right.